and welcome to Good Morning UK Have Your Say with me, Alistair McConaughey. This is episode 2 of our weekly mid-morning show, broadcasting live across all our platforms from 10:30 in the morning until 11:30. 1 hour broadcast coming to you live from AFFG's Nerve Centre here in our great British city of Glasgow. I'm your host, director of A Force for Good, Alistair McConaughey. Now, please do come in and please do send us your comments. Morning to Caroline and morning to Frankie. Good to see you watching on Facebook. Now, just a word to people who are watching on Facebook. You may be asked to click a little button that says allow StreamYard to see your comments. Please do click on that, because if you don't click on it, then I'm not likely to see your comments. So good morning to Bill as well, watching on Facebook. And Richard says, as usual. And Bobby says, hi all. And Caroline says, it's my first time here. Excellent, Caroline. Thank you. And glad to see you in here. Please do give us your thoughts this morning. What's on your mind? And tell us. This is Good Morning UK, have your say. So it's all about you getting something off your chest if you want, and we can discuss it. Good to see Paul in again. He's a good chap, always here. Great sight, Alistair. Good to you, Paul. And Debbie, wonderful. Hope things are good with you this morning, Debbie. And good morning to Frankie. Now, as I said, we are streaming. We are gallantly streaming across all our platforms this morning, the ones that take live video. That's Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. And gallantly streaming, of course, is the American national anthem, talking about its flag. But for us, or the platforms we have, we're so gallantly streaming, and our webcam's red glare, the light shining in here, gives proof to the world that our flag is still here. Oh, say does this Union Jack banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? That's our little rendition, paraphrasing the American national anthem on this inauguration day, although some people are calling it an installation day. We'll get to that later in the program. But as I say, if you're watching on Facebook and if StreamYard asks you to let StreamYard see your comments, please click yes, and that allows us to see your comments as well. Good morning to William and to Ray. Good stuff, Ray. Hope you're keeping well. And to Alan. And Dave says, keep up the good work. Stephen, the dulcet tones of Alistair, we miss them more. Absolutely. Well, I'm always up for a song if we can. Chick says, good morning, on coffee break at work, got 10 minutes, catch up later. Okay, Chick, good to hear from you. Good morning to you, Claire. Well, coming up this morning, the Conservatives in Scotland have been rebuffed rather abruptly by the Labour Party. The Tories put out a message yesterday saying that they were looking to work with the Labour Party, suggesting some kind of coalition. Anas Sarwar rebuffed them fairly strongly. What do people think about that? I'll just get the quote here. But should the Labour Party cooperate with the Conservatives at the Holyrood election? A lot of people think that they should, but the Labour Party doesn't seem up for it. What's your thoughts on the matter? Douglas Ross, the leader of the Conservatives, he put out a message saying, if it means stopping the SNP and their push for Indy, I would be part of a unionist coalition. Unionist coalition, I like the sound of that. The last Labour leader wouldn't work with us. Will you, Anas Sarwar and Monica Lennon? And as quick as you could say Jack Flash, Anas gets back saying, no, I won't. And then he talked about something about a quarter of Scottish kids are growing up in poverty, although what's that's got to do with the Scottish Tories? Who knows? And then he goes, while you and the SNP divide our country, instead I will focus on bringing people together and rebuilding, not a return to the divisive politics of old. Well, it seems that was a bit of a divisive message, was it not? Accusing the Tories of dividing the country and then coming in and saying that, but I want to rebuild and I don't want anything to do with the divisive politics of old. Well, if he didn't want anything to do with the divisive politics of old, maybe he should have joined with a unionist coalition. I can understand, of course, why he might not want to do that, but any thoughts that you've got on that, fire them in. Stephen says, the Labour Party have missed a great opportunity to oust the SNP. 20 to 30 seats could be won if only one union candidate stood. Isn't that so true? Isn't that so true? Because a lot of people, maybe in down south, they go, well, why does the SNP keep winning? Well, it's simply because people who believe in the UK have got so many different parties to vote for. Tory, Labour, Lib Dem, and of course the multitude of fringe parties which grow, it seems, by the day. Caroline says Douglas Ross is ace. He's a great guy. There's a lad here. I have to explain this one, but this is... Could the Chipper Rice Boys get a shout out? That's Scott. Absolutely. Now, these guys have formed an Xbox One football club. They're calling it No More Mr. Rice Guy. And I'm very glad to say that they've appointed Alistair McConaughey as the captain of it. So thank you to the No More Mr. Rice Guy football team. Remember, no more Mr. Rice Guy. Let's get these goals piled high. No more Mr. Rice Guy. That's the style we play by. How did the game go last night, by the way? I hope that you won. Fire that one in. Callum, you played fantastic for No More Mr. Rice Guy last night, so top man, thank you. Thank you. Finn says, love the headphones. Well, everything's colour coordinated in this studio, Finn. The blue goes with the blue just to my left ear here, as well as the blue to my right ear. And we're also getting a pair of red headphones as well, but I think the blue ones go quite well because otherwise there's a lot of red in the studio at the moment. Richard, talking about the Unionist coalition, goes, our Unionist politicians are generally very disappointing, including the metropolitan elite. Now, William says, we now have two new parties talking about fringe parties to break up the vote. There are a few out there, I know that. There's George Galloway's party. There is Abolish the Scottish Parliament Party, and there is one or two others coming on the scene, I believe. Although they are only standing on the regional list. Now, when you stand on the regional list, that's a different matter from first past the post. First past the post can quite clearly take votes away from others, but on the regional list, because it's proportional representation, it's slightly different. is slightly different, and it's not so easily split. But I take your point. Tommy says, are the SNP aware that people such as myself will never accept the result in their favour of any future independence referendum? It's simple economics. We can't afford to be independent. I certainly am not prepared to lose everything I've ever worked for. Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. And why should people like ourselves accept a result of a referendum if it went against us? Because we've seen the precedent of Nicola Sturgeon simply not accepting the 2014 election and accepting the 2016 one in very bad grace. So why should how can she expect anybody to now accept a referendum that goes against her wishes? Caroline there is asking a quick question in terms of independence. Has any cited a true factual fiscal statement, old or new, to support the indie ref argument? Well, Caroline, they're always coming up with various papers that they claim to have written or studied or whatever that claim to show it one way or the other, and they'll always have a piece of paper that tells them, their supporters, that everything's going to be hunky dory. They did do a paper recently on that particular matter, but a lot of that it's kind of an argument only for the academics. For many of us, it's kind of beyond our ability to really know one way or the other, and the SNP rely upon that fact, and they don't expect that people are really going to go in and study things in depth. All of us just kind of follow what seems to be the dominant political point of view without really looking into any further. And that's the danger, of course, of these referendums, is that people can be quite easily manipulated in a bad way. So we really must ensure that we don't have another referendum, because it would be an absolute nightmare, because we have to think, where does the power lie? And the power lies with, at this moment, with the Scottish National Party, with their media, their lapdog media here in Scotland, which they've got in the bag. And so people like ourselves and yourselves and so on would struggle to get the truth out. We really would. Another question there coming in from a lady talking about her daughter. Sorry, it's from you, Caroline. My daughter has missed out on her preferred Nat 5 and higher subjects at school because the SNP have made Gaelic a mandatory subject and rules out other subjects in columns. Education is a devolved issue. SNP fail, hurting the children in Scotland. Yes, that's true. Do you know, we support the Gaelic language. Obviously, it's one of the United Kingdom's original languages, but we don't like to see it being used deliberately as a political tool. And a lot of Gaelic speakers don't like that either. And the thing is, if you do qualify, and if that's, I mean, how many jobs really are you going to get in Gaelic? Really, you could be the presenter of BBC Alba, or you could be the fellow that translates the railway signs for ScotRail. But I mean, that's only 2 jobs in the entire world. So your options are limited, really, at the end of the day. And it's silly to put too much. It's silly to push that as an actual political thing as well. But certainly, by all means, study it just out of interest. Alan says, if the SNP had a concrete plan, they would ram it down our throats to show how independence could work and convince us. The reason they don't is they're bluffing it and have no idea. I think that's true. I mean, you look at the people that are misgoverning us at the moment in Holyrood, and you're like, how did they ever get there? And they got there because they were lucky enough to live in a town or a constituency where they saw the main chance, where if I join the SNP, because I can actually string a sentence together quite well, then I'll probably be the candidate and I'll probably be elected. And that means I'll probably get into the so-called SNP cabinet, which means I'll get a massive salary of 90,000+ pounds a year. So a lot of the people who are actually in the SNP were just in the right place at the right time. And I tell you something, who's a good example of that, Nicola Sturgeon as well. Because I remember seeing her on the television when I was young, and she's my age, right? She's my age, and I was like, how is she on the telly? I couldn't understand it. But of course, she was in the right place at the right time, and she fell in with the right party. And she did well for herself, didn't she? Goodness me. Um, Johnny, they are just saying, keep up the good work, Alistair. Thanks. The guy who translates the signs for ScotRail, George, liked that one. And he got that job, and he's got that one for life. I'm just telling you, right? And he's not due to retire for like another 35 years, and I bet he's on a good salary. And how do we know that he's even translated these signs right? I mean, how do we know that's the Gaelic version for Airtree, right? Airtree. That's not even a real word. How can that have a Gaelic version? I don't know. It's weird. Actually, I don't know where Airtree comes from. It's an interesting word. I've always wondered that. Anyway, there is a Gaelic version of it. As is, there's one for Dundee as well, which is Dundee. Stephen just coming in there. The current SNP strategy is vote for independence and hope it works out. We have no plan and we'll give no economic facts. We can sort it out afterwards. Yeah, yeah. It's like a dive into the deep end, basically. Dive into the deep end. And here's I am wee Johnny just say something here that a lot of people are feeling as well, that the SNP's sole survival mechanism is dependent on the continuation of unionist hate. Scottish politics have become undebatable, hateful, and it's hard to debate with any SNP on an equal footing. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and Caroline just says, yeah, Gaelic is important, but monopolises the budget. Of course it does. It outweighs the cost. Update on No More Mr. Rice Guy. We unfortunately didn't clinch the title last night, but we're training hard and ready to smash it and win the league this weekend. Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, what was I going to get to this? Yeah, yeah. So we're moving on now to the COVID lockdown, which is just continuing as well. And I have a question for you. Basically, I mean, is the COVID lockdown ever going to end? Sometimes a lot of us are lying in bed at night looking at the ceiling thinking, where's the way out of this? Where's the way out of this? Now, here's the thing: we've got an election coming up on the 6th of May here in Scotland, and that seems like a perfect opportunity for a political party to stand up and say, hey, guess what? If you elect us, we're going to end the lockdown, or at least we've got a very quick plan out of the lockdown. And who should be taking up that mantle? But of course, the Conservatives are the opposition party here in Scotland, but Labour could do it as well. And they simply lay out, look, under this is the gift that I'm going to give to the Tories and Labour right now, if you are listening, okay? Use the Holyrood election to absolutely tank the SNP, and the way you do that is by opening up Scotland, by saying you are going to open up Scotland and you're going to do it quickly, and here's the time plan, and regardless, we are going to be open by summer, or autumn, and we're not going to lock down again, and we give you that promise. And you know what? If you came out with that, you would get you'd get more votes than you're going to get at the moment. Put it that way, okay? Whether or not that would be enough to unseat the SNP, I don't know, but you get more votes than you're going to get at the moment. So you've got nothing to lose. You come up with a proper route out of lockdown, and you push it relentlessly, and you push it with moral stamina. And you don't let the SNP's lapdog media, which is to say the entire media in Scotland, you do not let them scare you or beat you down. And you come up and you say you vote for the Tories or you vote for Labour or whoever, then here's the plan. We will open up Scotland by August or thereabouts. And if you do that, you'll get more votes than you're going to get, okay? And because the lockdown is going to be the big thing. That is if we even have an election. But let's presume we're going to have the election on the 6th of May. Then you, opposition parties, need to offer a route out of lockdown. And that will be your winning. That will be your winning game plan, okay? And you heard it here first. You heard it here first. Now, what do people think of that? Should the Tories and Labour offer a route out of lockdown? Okay? Is a route out of lockdown a winning? Is it a winning strategy? That's the question. That's my question to you. Should the Tories and Labour offer a route out of lockdown? Is it a winning strategy for the Holyrood elections? We at A Force for Good believe that it is, because people are now getting to the end of their tether with this. And for me, it was when they banned drinking in the park, okay? Which is a fine old Scottish tradition. Fine old Scottish tradition, and they banned it last week or whenever. And why did they do that? Because if you drink in the park, you're going to be breathing in air, and then when you breathe out air, you might be moving the air molecules around, which then, if there's a passing jogger running past you at a quick speed, might catch some of what you just breathed out, which may or may not then send him to the grave. You know, it's just all fantasy basically, and I'm getting tired of it. And I don't know about you, but it's completely just, it's getting anyway. Let's concentrate on the positive. How do we get Nicola Sturgeon out? Okay, because that woman is driving me insane. Too much for my body, too much for my brain. That woman's driving me insane. She just sucks. She sucks so much. To paraphrase AC/DC, touch too much. Why does Nicola Sturgeon suck so much? Oh, so annoying. So annoying. Yeah, so let's go back to the comments. There's a good one from Lydia. Says, just ignore the lockdown and mask orders. I'm with you there. Lydia says there's more of us than them. I'd like to think so anyway. I'd like to think so. Caroline's asking, what coffee am I on? Just Nescafe. Just Nescafe. Old style. McGregor says they're destroying our country on purpose. Do you know, sometimes one's brain does go there. It's like, what other explanation can there possibly be for this? And I know some people do believe that. I'm trying to stay away from believing that, and I'm trying to believe that it's just a complete massive mess up. That's what I'm holding to at the moment anyway. Finn says, why can't we have masks with straws built in? Would allow us to go to pubs. That's right. And if you drank beer through a straw, doesn't that make you get drunk quicker or something like that? So that might be a win-win, and you wouldn't have to stay in the pub so long either, because you'd get a buzz quicker. That's something. Should send that one in. Paul says, COVID is a scamdemic. Now, there's another comments come in. That's quite a big question from a chap, which I'm just going to touch on very quickly. Um, um, Justin Davis saying that he is a reluctant, hesitant separatist, and he's wondering why there are no plans, why groups like us don't have plans to modernise Westminster. Well, we actually do have a few plans to modernise Westminster, and we have written about those in the past, and um, the question about scrapping the Lords. Well, I mean that's an endless debate about what one should do with the Lords, because it's really about a second chamber at the end of the day. There it is. And so the question is, should a nation have a second chamber? And if it should, then how is that chamber to be arranged? And it could well be that our second chamber at the moment could be reformed in a more in a better way. But that's not really been an argument and not an issue that we've really got into, because it's just so involved and everybody's got an opinion on it. It's one of these things you can never really find closure almost on whether or not what you should do with the Lords. I'm not as an organisation, we're not in favour of scrapping a second chamber at Westminster, but we are open to the possibility that things could be improved there, definitely. Debbie, going back to the straws in masks in pubs, if that means we get drunk quicker, it means we can forget about Nippy for a while. Oh, well, she is actually going to ban people, I'm quite sure, from even drinking. I can see the whole prohibition thing coming back in. In fact, banning people drinking in parks is a kind of prohibition. I should say it's actually against the law anyway, but people do it. People do it because that's tradition, isn't it? Bill's coming back in on what that last person said. Who says they will sell the NHS? It's SNP Bluster. Will the SNP make us a US style system under independence? Yeah, they're going to make us follow the next 4 years anyway of what Biden does, because what happens in America tends to come over here, especially if the media are behind it. And so the whole Biden thing is going to come over here eventually. There's no question. And see, this is another thing that we've got. Is like we've got these people who are very well placed, such as Piers Morgan, who are broadcasting, and we every morning basically just panic and fear and political agitation. And we actually established this program as a kind of talk show, and it's going to improve and get even better as we go forward. And we're going to have guests and talks and things like that. But we established it in reaction to Piers Morgan, because people get so upset when they see him in the morning, and they just need to fire off, lose some steam, and also get cheered up a bit by us. But as long as we've got people like Piers Morgan just promoting it, then they can promote anything, and a substantial number of the people will just fall into line. That's the danger. Tommy reflecting something that a lot of people say, it's Holyrood that needs shut down. I do believe there is a party standing on the regional list next year that does want to shut it down. It's called Abolish the Scottish Parliament. Don't know much about them at all. Um, Talking about Biden there, Lydia says Biden's not going to be president. Well, I think by this evening he will be, but for how long he's going to be going to be president, I do not know. I do not know. Certainly, it's a very, very strange thing going on. I mean, if that guy is the most popular president of all time, how come nobody's attending his? How come nobody's attending his inauguration rally? You know, and you've got 65,000 troops like keeping the people out. That's it. The optics of that do not bode well for America going into the future. Finn's saying, what's thoughts on the Celtic Dubai issue? What's your thoughts on the Celtic Dubai issue, Finn? That's not a story we've been. I know about it, but we don't really have formulated thoughts. Give us your thoughts on what should have happened there, Finn, please. And Ibrox Park says, stop watching the mainstream media. Well, I'm just going to do a wee share here, and let's hope that it actually works. There is a way to get rid of your fear, okay? There is a way to stop living in fear. And let me just share that with you right now. Here's a wee meme. What can we do to stop living in fear? Click. That sums it up. That sums it up in many ways. Uh-oh, somebody else wants to close down Holyrood. Holyrood needs to be closed, says June. Caroline says she's got to go to work now, but you can watch us on the catch up. Well, this video will stay up on our Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube pages. And William's saying something here. I don't watch live TV. It's great. You can pick viewing, and best of all, no license fee. Paul's wondering if Biden knows that he's president. I hope that somebody has told him. I do hope that somebody has told him. Bill, we're not doing the Saturday street stall at the moment. We did 38 of them last year. That's to say the television, the live broadcasts. We're switching to a morning show now, and we'll see how this goes. And we might get back to something on a Saturday, or we might get back to maybe we might start doing 2 or 3 shows during the week, during the morning. But right now we're just getting into it and just feeling our feel for it at the moment. And of course, as for actual real Saturday street stalls on the street, that is indeed off until the lockdown is cast off. Crikey. Finn says he never watches the mainstream media. He sold the phone, the TV, and the laptop. Watching this in the library. Goodness me. Watching this in library. SNP tried to stop me. Good for you, Finn. Good for you. Aye. So, there was I heard a rumor. I know there's 65,000 troops in DC, but I also heard a rumor, and I'll just bring this up here. I also heard a rumor that they've actually brought in the Ghostbusters team, have been deployed in case all the dead people that voted for Biden become violent, which is a concern. There's no question about that. Sorry if we're less than believing that everything that we're told by the mainstream media. We should really behave ourselves, but for some reason we find it very difficult to do so. Well, yeah, I mean, if all the people voted for Biden and if he was the most popular president of all time, then why all the troops? Um, I'm pretty sure that if it had been Trump who had been elected, there would be massive crowds, just like there were massive crowds at all his events prior to then. But anybody who followed the, do you know what? Yeah, no. Anybody who followed the election would see that, in fact, um, Biden was getting nobody turning up. And when I say nobody, I'm talking about maybe 20 people, things like that. It was embarrassing. And then we're meant to believe that he became the president. That everything was just so weird about that election. Anyway, and I'll tell you something else as well. You know, the whole mainstream media is trying to dump all over Trump and the Trump family. But if Trump had been a Democrat and if it had been his supporters who had occupied Capitol Hill, then the entire mainstream media would be making excuses for him, and they would be saying, oh, his supporters were simply trying to ensure the democratic legitimacy of the US electoral process. It's perfectly understandable. We don't agree with what they did, but you know what? They had to do it because there was something clearly wrong with the result. Blah, 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 blah. That is exactly what would be happening if the situation was reversed. And give you another example of that, right? Melania Trump, who is like a 10. I mean, she's a clothes horse. She would be a supermodel were she not the wife of the president. In fact, she was essentially one prior to becoming the first lady. She never got a front cover of the world's foremost fashion magazine, Vogue. During her time as first lady, she was never on the front cover of Vogue because the horrible harridans who run that magazine didn't like the fact that she was a conservative woman. Well, guess who's front cover of the February issue of Vogue? Right? None other than Camel- Kamala Harris. Okay? So, if that doesn't just show you the absolute depths of bias across the media, it's incredible. Now, you can Google that and you'll see some pictures of Melania on Vogue magazines, but these are fakes that have been put together by her supporters. But she was never on it. She was on it back in 2005 when she married Donald Trump when he was simply a New York businessman. But she's never been on it as first lady because she's been deliberately kept off. And you think about that, you know, she should have been on every fashion magazine every month. Anyway, just a little example there. Trying to get some comments here, going through them. Um, Fire in your comments, folks. What do we do? How do we feel the way that America is going? Right. I spoke to somebody last night, and they said this to me. They said they felt that a light was going out in America. Okay, they felt that a light was going out in America. So, is a light going out in America? It kind of feels like it. It kind of feels like it in a way, especially with all the optics that are around this militarized zone around Washington D.C. for no real reason there at all. It is like something from a movie, and there's been a whole rash of dystopian movies and series of late on Netflix and things like that, where all you see is deserted streets and empty armored cars and soldiers walking around and things like that. And it's almost like America is just like a movie these days. It's like And America has always walked a very thin line between being a movie and being a real place. And the movies and America reality has always kind of meshed in a way. And it's now almost like the movies are just running it, and it's just like a movie in itself. It's very strange. It's very strange. Um, and Bill says Trump wasn't a politician. He was a self-made man and never got a fair crack at the whip because of this. He wasn't swayed by megacores and political games. He did what he thought would benefit his people. Yes, he did. And the thing there is, I was watching Good Morning Britain this morning, and they had Gordon Brown on. Gordon Brown commenting on Donald Trump. As you can imagine, it wasn't particularly favourable. And he said that he thought America was safer this morning. Well, what does he mean by that? It's like, literally, Donald Trump was the first US president for decades not to actually start a war. Okay? And I'm afraid to tell you, these wars are coming back now. That essentially the deep state are back in control. These wars are coming back, and you can look out for just like endless bombing of countries in the Middle East or wherever. I mean, that's all just coming back. And mark my words on that, America's not safer. There was a period there, 4 years, when a billionaire outlier managed to get in and try to change things, but the deep state basically just relentlessly assaulted him, and we're back to business as usual. And some people just prefer business as usual. You know, I read a lot of these fake conservative commentators in the newspapers, and you can see they're just relieved now. Oh, we'll just get back to normal. We'll just continue to write our conservative columns while the world goes to pot around us, and we'll continue to get paid to write this nonsense and so on. But at least it's business as usual. It's back to the status quo. And there's some people just like that, you know. They don't want a disruptor to come in and try to actually change the nature of the system. Anyway, they're going to be quite happy for the next 4 years. The rest of us are going to have to really figure out how we're going to go forward, because one of the things that's going to happen, and this is serious for a moment, one of the things that's going to happen is that as America goes, so the United Kingdom goes, and there's going to be a clamp down on anybody that's got vaguely traditional conservative points of view, and these people are going to be called far-right extremists, because the definition of what is far-right simply moves until it's basically anybody. So anybody, and far-right people are going to get threatened as and called potential terrorists and threats to the state and so on. And so they're going to get their media platforms removed, and they're not just going to get their media platforms removed, but they're going to get things like banking services and stuff like that removed. So what that's going to do is it is going to push all these people into creating their own platforms, creating their own payment systems, creating their own publishing outfits, creating their own media. And that is in the long term going to be a good thing, because it's going to present an alternative reality to the world. And so in the long term, we're going to get through it, but in the short term, it's going to be a bit of a tyranny, I'm afraid, for anybody which has got traditional conservative views. And don't look to the newspapers to defend your point of view. Look to the newspapers to see what's coming next for you. And there's and yeah, lots of things are going to get accused of being far right there, says Justin, and when in fact a lot of things are simply just history. You know, people looking into stuff and coming up with their own opinions, and all of that's going to come out. You know, all of that's going to come out now, because the system has pushed people into a way that they're going to have to develop their own media systems in order to explain the nature of reality that hitherto has been hidden. Please do think about that. Joseph says, even though I didn't like Trump, judging by his support both at rallies and every place he visited in America, I could see the postal votes were rigged. For what reason? Perhaps the established were not happy with his immigration Islamist policy, whatever. It stinks. Well, they wanted him out. They wanted him out because he was an outsider. He was trying to turn the insiders out. He was trying to turn the inside out, and they didn't like that fact. Okay, and he was disrupting the status quo, so he had to go. And the way they did it was through swamping the ballots, the polling places with postal votes, what they call mail-in ballots, with so many mail-in ballots that they could not be properly verified. And there's lots of websites out there. There's here'stheevidence.com is a website that you can go to that lists thousands of articles on this particular matter. Sorry, hereistheevidence.com. Hereistheevidence.com, and you can go there, and it's all out there, and it's all going to come out. Lydia gives us some good stuff there. The light in America will shine forever. Absolutely. God bless that thought. This shadow is temporary. I agree with you there. I was watching last night, I was watching the Donald Trump's farewell address, and he was upbeat, and you know, words can really help to soothe the human soul. And what was it he said? He goes, we must go forward with, quote, a loyal and joyful heart, an optimistic spirit, and a supreme confidence that for our country and our children the best is yet to come. And too many of us perhaps are guilty of getting too worried about stuff, but we have to go forward with a loyal and joyful heart, with optimism and confidence for the future, because this is the only life that we're going to get here in the living realm, and so we have to make the best of it and look on the positive and see the light, not get obsessed with the shadow, which is so easy to do. Well, Alan says that America is doomed. I think it's going to be struggling in the next 3 or 4 years, but as I said there, for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction, and as a consequence, people are going to be waking up to a whole new reality, which is going to be a good. They're going to be creating communication systems which will not be subject to the domination of the deep state, basically, which is what we've kind of got at the moment. Somebody mentioned there, Iron Wee John says, nice one, Lydia. It's always darkest before the light, or it's always darkest before the dawn, old Trump. Alan says, war is money, and all the rest of the presidents went to war, but not President Trump, not a single war. That's true. He did have a wee bit of a kind of incident with Syria, I remember, at the start of his term, but beyond that, it was relatively peaceful as far as American presidents are concerned. Aye, Stephen says something that does concern us all here. I mean, Biden is extremely old to become a president. You know, he's not particularly old in as far as modern life is concerned, but he's still pretty old, right? But the thing with him is that he acts older than a 78-year-old. He acts like a 98-year-old. You know, he acts. That's my point. He acts 20 years older than he actually is, and like whereas Trump's 74, and when you see Trump, like he strides out like a young man 25 years younger than him, but Biden like shuffles, like he literally is, as Stephen says, he shuffles, you know, and that's a really bad sign for the president to be shuffling. So who knows what's going to happen there, but certainly Kamala Harris is in the wings, which will be a sheer delight, I'm quite sure, if she ever becomes president. And of course, Ibrox says, yeah, with Trump out the way, they can now steamroll the New World Order. Well, you know, I was listening to Gordon Brown on Good Morning Britain this morning, and he was talking about, oh, we can now go forward with the Green New Deal. Again, that's all part of this NWO thing. And what some people call the Great Reset. Yeah. Dottie says Trump couldn't be bought. That's what they didn't like. That's true. You can't really buy a billionaire, and he was principled enough not to go along with something if he didn't want to go along with it. McGregor says that UNN have got a show at 4 o'clock. UNN, that's Unity News Network on YouTube, and David Clues was on our Union Telethon. He's a good fellow. We're very supportive of UNN and David. Good. Well, you know, just bringing up what I wanted to say here. That yes, when is the actual inauguration? I think it's at 4 o'clock American time, so it'll be in the evening for us. Or is it? It's, yeah, 4 o'clock. And another thing that the media is doing now is they're trying to. This is kind of dangerous as well. The mainstream media, if you start to look, they're starting to like make enemies with Taiwan. Okay, that's something that we started to notice. The American press is starting to pick on Taiwan, which of course is an enemy of mainland China. And the Taiwanese, many of the Taiwanese escaped from Chinese persecution, and they oppose the Chinese Communist Party. But the mainstream media, like the Washington Post, is trying to make an enemy of Taiwan now. So in other words, they're doing the work of essentially the Chinese Communist Party, and that's an American newspaper under Biden. So that's going to roll out as well. You could be looking at Taiwan being accused of who knows what, because there are a lot of Chinese who really support Trump, but these are the Taiwanese Chinese, and my understanding is they're behind organizations like the Epoch Times, which is a very good online newspaper, and they support Trump because Trump was against the Chinese Communist Party and he was keeping the Chinese in line. But of course the Chinese didn't like that, so they support Biden, who is probably going to try to undo all of Trump's diplomacy with China in favor of the Chinese Communist Party. So watch out for Biden cozying up to China, allowing China more access into America, and perhaps being negative towards Taiwan. Look out for all that coming down the line as well. And that when that starts to happen, that's pretty serious. But as we say, as long as we can see, people like ourselves and others who can see what's coming down the line, and as long as we can communicate that with you as well. So the best thing that we can do at the moment is basically turn off the psychological propaganda and warfare of the mainstream media. See if you can to try to find alternative sources of information on that. On YouTube, as far as Trump goes, One American News is very good. OAN, Right Side Broadcasting is always, as usual, excellent. In fact, Right Side Broadcasting did a lot to win the 2016 referendum for Trump, because it went to all his rallies and actually enabled us all to see what Trump was actually saying at these rallies. So yes, switch off the propaganda from the mainstream media, and because a lot of it is just simply intended to confuse us, to divide us, and especially to demoralize us. So the point is, we've always got to keep our spirits up, okay? Got to keep our spirits up, even though at this time things might be looking problematical. Thank you for the comments that have been coming in here. By the way, we've had a good show this morning. We are, of course, as you know, we are a force for good, and we are at aforceforgood.uk, and we're also on Facebook. We are on Twitter. We are on YouTube, and we are on Instagram. And we're also on Parler, although Parler is having its troubles at the moment. The Amazon took Parler off its servers. We've also got an account on gab.com. We have only gabbed once on it. We basically have no followers there. Gab has been overwhelmed with millions of new followers after Twitter ditched Trump. And so Gab is not really working at the moment very well. So we're not able to do anything on Gab. But once Gab settles down and once it builds its bandwidth or whatever it has to do, then we'll be on there and we'll also be publishing. And we've got plans to be on at least another 2 new social media platforms this year. So we're looking to the future and we're protecting our material here as well. But for the meantime, do check us at youtube.com/UK A Force for Good, and please do subscribe to us on there, which of course is free. That just means follow us by clicking the red button, and let's get our followers up on that, and on Instagram and on Facebook and on Twitter. And we do appreciate everybody who has supported us. And at aforceforgood.uk there, we do have a shop where we've got various items for sale, including flags, Union Jack umbrellas, greeting cards, and of course our wee book for the Union, which is our 56-page pocket book, which is a great wee education into the Union. So if you can see a way to doing that, please do. Well, folks, we've had a good chat this morning. We're going to call it a day. Thank you very much to everybody who has come in and who has commented. We've been around the houses here on Nicola Sturgeon, on the Tories, and on the presidential installation basically, which is happening today in America, with very bad optics around a militarized zone. There's the link to our shop up in the Facebook page. Bill says thank you. Thank you, Bill. Thanks for checking in. Always good to see you. And Lydia says, take those masks off and ignore the unholy, I think that's the word, unholy mandates they're trying to force on us. Thank you for that comment, Lydia, and thank you to everybody who's commented. I really enjoyed today, and I like doing it. If you think we should do more of this, if you think we should do this twice a week or 3 times a week, please do say, please do say. Paul says, bye, Alistair, God bless. William says, okay, take care, be lucky. Ibrox Park says, thanks for the show, Alistair. And Alan says, keep up the good fight. We will. And as Trump said, let us go forward with a loyal and joyful heart, with optimism for the future and with supreme confidence that the best is yet to be. Ladies and gentlemen, it just remains for me to say, God bless the United Kingdom and God save the Queen. Have a great day.